there's all kinds of images out there for your husband, for his, you always say for your chain to be jerked, right? Because guys are visual. Men think about sex, what is it, every 3 minutes or something like that?
3 seconds.
Or 3 seconds, whatever it is. Yeah. And guys, ladies, there's nothing wrong with that. That is how God wired them, and you're not going to change it. Trust me on that. You are not going to change it.
Welcome to the Couplepreneur Life podcast. Hey, we have a fun episode here. We're going to be discussing how to have better sex.
S-E-X.
Oh, we're bringing it. Okay. Did we just say sex? You know, it's like we're not allowed to say sex.
We aren't?
I mean, it's like, it's kind of one of those topics that you just don't, it's kind of embarrassed to talk around, or you're not really talking about, but it's all over our society. It's everywhere.
Well, I think it's more married sex. People, it's sex is a thing where it's, for the young, or it's this, I don't know how to describe it, where for married people it's like, I don't want to talk about sex, whatever, right? Or it's a taboo subject, or something that's certainly in churches, isn't discussed. When there's a whole book in the Bible dedicated to marital sex. It's called the Song of Solomon. If you haven't read it, go read it.
I like to call it marriage porn. You read it, because what they talk about, it's covered, which is what they want, was how God created. God created marriage between a man and a woman, and He gave the gift of sex, not just to procreate, to have children, okay, but to create more of a relationship, intimacy between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife.
A husband and a wife.
And so God says, go ahead, as a husband and wife, enjoy each other.
And there are certain body parts that women and men have that are exclusively just for pleasure, sexual pleasure. So there you go. So God must have meant it, because He's the one that created us, and He knows what He's doing. So
we should be talking about more sex, and it's just, and it is one of the one of the important foundational issues within a marriage. Okay.
Yes.
And sadly, it's one of the things that people struggle within their marriage, and then you throw being in business together and all the pressures and stresses there. Okay, and then of course the kids and all that kind of stuff, and sex. Takes a back seat.
What's the movie? Let's see, with Steve Carell and Tina Fey. What's it called? Date Night?
Date Night.
Date Night. That's right. It's a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch Date Night. It's probably, 10 plus years old. But they, in the beginning, they're both working and all the things. They go on a date. They come back, and then he was expecting they're going to have sex, and she comes out in her old flannels, and she's got her mouthpiece in, and he's like, oh, I thought we were going to, and she's like, oh, no, do you want to? Oh. And they just have this conversation. She's like, meh, I don't know, do you want to? And they just decide, we're tired, we'll do another time. And that it was funny in the movie, but it's funny because it's real life, right? It's what happens, but sadly, in real life it happens, and it shouldn't, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be that way.
So it is that's going to lead to, we have a couple things here to do that we've done that is made our sex life very, very, very nice and
very
good.
Passionate, yes. And we can say, being, again, we're 60.
Right.
The recording of this, been married almost 30 years. Our sex life has never been better. It just has, and we've actually been blessed that we've always had a really good sex life. There's been ups and downs, right? When you have a baby, or if there's an illness or whatever it might be, where it may wane just a little bit, just from a physicality standpoint. But our sex now has never gotten better, because also we're empty nesters. So that definitely helps. When you're empty nesters and you don't run the risk, that's one reason we moved to Florida, you don't run the risk of your kids walking in, right? You can be as creative as you want to be in all the different areres of the house that you want to be.
And we'll talk about that. Well, let's leave that. Maybe we'll talk about that in the club section.
Okay. What the different places in the house. I'm not sure we're going to get.
I don't know if we're going to get comments. Ooh, old people having sex.
Hey, you know what, guys? You should. We only say that to give you encouragement, right? Because if you're in your 30s or your 40s and you're thinking, our sex life's pretty good, but when we hit that age, body parts probably don't work or whatever. So not true.
They work just fine.
They work just fine. And your intimacy and your sex life can get even better as you get older. What do they say in nursing homes? Like, that's one of the biggest things, is like, STDs or something because the
people they're hooking up.
In nursing homes. So that should give you hope. Instead of grossing you out, it should give you hope that an important part of your married life can grow on into your latter years. Not that we're in our latter years. We're midlife. Right. Well, okay, maybe not mid, but we're definitely not in the rocking chair years. So anyway.
Certainly not in our minds.
Correct. Certainly not in our minds. 60 is the new 40, I'm convinced.
But if you do these things, it can be, and I totally agree with you. It's our sex is a lot better than even when we first met. Mm-hmm. And we rocked the world when we first met. Yeah, because it's different, right? Well, and one thing that makes it better is the life of all that. If you can hold together that's the true intimacy. And then we do some of these things that we're going to talk about here, but doing life together and making it through the business struggles and the kids struggles and all those kinds of things. You've been on the battlefield together, and so that the intimacy there is it's even more powerful. It's a different level of sex. It is. Right. So and then you throw all the fun stuff in. Okay, so which we'll talk about. So one of the things that we do want to say, you have to make it a priority. Yeah. Sex needs to become a priority because it is what reconnects you as a husband and wife. It's that intimate time, wherever you're doing, backseat or the minivan, right? You kind of brush off some of the cracker crumbs and you're like, hey, why not, right? But we've done that before. So make it a priority. Right. And if you have to schedule it, then schedule it, right? If it comes down, you guys are just so doggone busy that you're like, we just got to get on the calendar. That's fine. Then put it on the calendar. Spontaneity is also good too. We can certainly talk about that. But making it a priority because it is so important in how you not only end up communicating with each other. Because if there's sexual tension or somebody's withholding sex or something like that, then you can have some issues there. One thing I do want to say, and always feel like we need to give a caveat: if there is emotional issues or things like that where sex is a definite issue, we are not marriage counselors. Go seek help in that area if there's some sort of deep underlying issue or something that's having that spills over into your sexual life. That's different. We're talking about just kind of the average, when there's not some issue that might be causing difficulty. We're talking about what happens when you get married and all of a sudden you're in the throes of creating the business and growing and working on those kinds of things, and then now the kids show up and just live and all these things are just pulling at you, and you just don't feel sexy. Right. And so that because you just don't feel sexy. That's part of it. When we say about making a priority, it's not only just making a priority of having time to play and have sexual intercourse, but it's the whole idea being around sex as a priority. I love one thing, sweetheart, I love that you've done, if you don't mind me sharing, which I know we don't. Okay. All right. We'll see. Is that we get ready together in the morning, okay? And so we're in the bathroom together, and after take a shower. So our routine is we work out in the morning, and then we come back and we get cleaned up together, okay? What I love is you just don't throw on some, what's the word I'm looking for? Flannel, kind of ratty thing that, or a ratty T-shirt or whatever. You throw something on that kind of looks a little sexy. That even though you may not be in that mood, and you're not saying let's have sex. No. Though we could. I mean, we won't go down it. But you're making a point to look sexy for me. Yes. Even though that's not what we're getting into. No. But and then I feel sexier too. Right. Ladies, there's all kinds of images out there for your husband, for his, you always say for your chain to be jerked, right? Because guys are visual. Men think about sex, what is it, every 3 minutes or something like that? 3 seconds. Or 3 seconds, whatever it is. Yeah. And guys, ladies, there's nothing wrong with that. That is how God wired them, and you're not going to change it. Trust me on that. You are not going to change it. And you'll beat him up about it, right? Again, that's how they're wired. But there's all kinds of images for him to see out there, whether it be on the phone or the TV or billboards, for heaven's sakes, whatever. So my thing was I wanted to give Richard an image of something that was sexy, but it pertained to me. So that's why I started doing that, just like a little silk slip type thing. He loves me in pink, so it's a little pink little slip that I wear. So yes, I used to wear the old crappy robe. Pretty in pink. The old crappy robe, big terry cloth thing and all the things, and which is whatever. But
I made the decision. I want to give him a visual of me. For him, if he does have his sex thought every 3 minutes or 3 seconds, whatever it is, that he thinks of me instead of some of the other images that are out there, right?
Yes, and it has worked. I want to thank you as my wife. I mean, I do. We work out at a younger gym, and obviously there's women there, and of course it's everywhere in our society. You can't watch a game without having something right in your
the
face.
Cheerleaders are having
right, and that's by design. Okay, what I love is you've given me pictures, and guys, if you're honest, we're visual people on the whole, and porn is it's a multi-gazillion dollar industry.
Right.
We all say we don't watch porn, but somebody is and paying for it because it's multi-gazillions.
Right.
And so we know there's that because it's there because we're attracted to that, right? I love that you've given me, if I see an image, if I see something, I love that you've replaced it with you. And so I don't feel shame that I just saw that I just saw that and I've had a sexual thought because you come into play.
I'm giving enough visuals.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And that's intentional.
Yeah.
Right. And ladies, we can fight it all we want. We can rail against it. We can say it's not fair, it's not right, they should change. How's that working for you? If you're doing that, how's that working out for you? Probably not very well, because I will tell you it's not, because that's what I used to do. It used to really, upset me that he would think about sex, or there was always, a thing of sex when, I've got the kids and I'm doing all the things. Well, that's just how he's wired. That's just how he's wired. So, and that doesn't mean that every time he has a sex thought that we then take a few minutes so that he can go, have it relieve himself. That's not how I want to say it. That's not what we're talking about. It's creating that atmosphere of intimacy, sexual intimacy, and that's normal in a marriage. It's supposed to be that way in a marriage. So making it a priority, and creating the intimacy.
There we go.
Way. Yeah.
Yes, and so those are ways to make it a priority, which leads to the thing of, where the next point is we talk it out. We talk about it. We have talked about it, and we continue to talk about it.
Yes, we've been way better about that. In the beginning, we didn't.
Right.
So much. We had sex, and because in the beginning you're always having sex all the time, right?
Right.
When you get married, or sometimes before marriage, which I'm guilty of that as well. But yeah, talking it out. We're way better about it, because ladies, I guess I'm talking to the ladies a lot. Ladies, your husbands, they're not mind readers. As much as you want them to be mind readers, well, he should know. He should know that I want this, or he should know that I like to be touched this way, or he should know, fill in the blank. Here's a little clue. He does not. He doesn't know. And men, or husbands and wives, if you're watching this together, men, attest to that. Tell your wife, I don't know. I need you to tell me. I need you to communicate with me some of the things you like, and more importantly, some of the things you don't like. Because that can cause issues as well. So having that open communication, where there's not finger pointing and resentment, because resentment will build. Resentment certainly will build if there isn't open communication about your sex life.
Right. And so as guy, I was at first I was kind of nervous or afraid of what you would tell me that you didn't like or whatever. But really, I found that made me feel even more confident when you would say, I don't like being touched this way, or this is too hard, or can we slow it down here? Or can you just relax, go with me? And it just gave me greater confidence, and actually made even my experience more fun and enjoyable.
Yes.
So,
and the same goes true, guys. Listen to your wife. If she tells you that, something that she likes about sex, listen to her. Like if she wants to do a bubble bath and have quite a bit of foreplay, and needs to be romanced a bit, because as girls typically like romance, then listen to your spouse. Because it's a give and take, right? Don't just think, well, just because she wants a bubble bath, and we got to do that every time. Well, no, more than likely not. But you do that enough times, then you'd be surprised the areas that all of a sudden quickie might be involved every now and then.
You don't need a bubble bath.
Right, don't need a bubble bath.
Get right to it.
Exactly. But yeah, talking it out with each other, and then no secrets, right?
Yes.
Just not keeping secrets from each other. Doesn't mean that you're spilling every single thought that pops into your head, because not every thought that pops into your head is from you.
Right.
Let's be clear on that.
But as far as secrets, let me be talking to the guys in this. A lot of guys live in a fantasy world.
They can.
They can, right? And sexually, that can be not the best place to be. But we can't help it. We have the fantasies, but share the fantasies at the appropriate time, with your wife, and talk about, well, I fantasize doing this or doing that. Now, you got to be open to. They may be open to trying some of the fantasy, okay, but they also may not be into trying. No,
Right.
I'm not interested. Right.
It doesn't sound like fun to me.
And that's okay.
Right.
But what I have found is I've gotten the fantasy off my chest, so to speak. I'm not living in the shadows. It's like I love that Laura, okay, and that you know all my secrets, all my fantasies. There's nothing that you don't know. And so I'm actually, in some sense you can feel, as guys we want to hide. We can hide. That's one of the big dangers with men is hiding sexually. But I actually feel more free and even stronger that you know me. And
well, it could be too that guys, you may be thinking, gosh, if I share this thing that I think might be fun to try with my wife, if I share it, she's going to be like, oh, gross, I would never. Ladies, don't do that for one. If you do get an open line of communication regarding sex, if one of you, could be the other way around too, one of you brings something that they'd like to try, whether, whatever it is, whipped cream, bubble bath, I'm kind of keeping it clean, but there could be other things. If your spouse brings that to you and says, here's something I'd like to try, don't go, oh, gross, how in the world could you like, As soon as you do that, you have shut down, you've shut your spouse down, and they're going to be even less likely to bring things up that you might find you would have liked, right? But if you totally shut them down or make them feel dirty or gross or whatever, that's not great for communication. And
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And on that, with talking out, and even with the sharing.
You lost your train of thought on that too, because it's been 3 minutes.
Yeah. You got it. Oh.
I was kind of waiting for you to pick up on that one, but here we're talking about sex.
We'll go to a movie. We'll watch a movie, and we're going to go to a movie, and then she can tell when I'm having. I'll touch her every so many minutes, and she goes, "You're thinking about sex, aren't you?" It's like, oh, shit, busted. Yeah,
And not that every time and by a certain way that you touch me, I've learned. Yes. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just rub or just whatever, and it's not a sexual, but I can always tell. Because I've gotten to know what just happened. I was kind of waiting for you to go to the next point, and he was gone there for a second.
I've enjoyed our conversations. All right.
Yes. So having those, not having secrets, having that open communication with each other, things that you like, things that you don't like, things you might want to try, and there could be something, that one spouse brings up. Here's something I want to try, and the other spouse is like, sure, let's give that a whirl. You do it and you go, well, okay, well, I wasn't a fan of that. And maybe you both aren't a fan of it. Well, at least you tried. And it could be something you end up really laughing about, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes part of
we've done
okay, wait, hold on. Let's be really careful about what we're...
Okay, let's try that. Well, yeah, see what there is. And it's like, what were we thinking?
I know. Check that one off the list and don't put it back on.
Exactly. But it didn't work for us. It may work for you, but it didn't work for us.
Yes.
And on that, as far as the fantasies too, and this is not, it's kind of a point because we've known people have gotten in trouble here with the fantasies. It's good to have the fantasies in your marriage, okay, but keep the fantasies within the marriage.
Of course.
And you're not sharing one another. So we're talking about there's all kinds of things out there, whatever, with others and places. Keep the fantasy within the marriage.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. Okay. So, something else you want to talk about?
Well, finally, it's changing it up. Okay. It's just changing it up every once in a while, because we can fall in. You have the things you discover. We know the things that we like, and the kind of groove we get into after been working or whatever, and and so we kind of know we wind up here and we do this and go here and all that, and we just know how it goes and it feels right. But change it up.
Right.
Okay.
Kind of experiment on different things. Again, being open with each other of what the limits and the boundaries are that you want to. Make sure you don't cross, but changing it up. It doesn't always have to be in your bedroom, Saturday night, 10 o'clock.
Right.
It just, and with the same lit candles or whatever it might be. You've got to get creative. That's the other thing. You got to get creative. Again, especially if you've got kids and you've got the business, there's so much pulling at you. You need to get creative about creating experiences together, things that could be fun. And what?
Well, I mean,
no.
It's just it's all this. It's new positions. Introduce a sex toy. Just try some different things. Right. Again, you mentioned different parts of the house. Different times of day.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you've got little kids, again, find a babysitter. Enlist grandma and grandpa for an overnighter, something. But you've got to be intentional about it. People are not going to volunteer to watch your kids. Hey, you guys look like you could use a really great, intimate, sex-filled night. Let me watch your kids for the night. This just isn't going to happen.
That hasn't happened.
It's not going to happen.
26 years. How many years have we had the kids?
Yeah.
Right. It's never happened once. No. Even when we put hints out.
Right. Doesn't happen.
We sure could use some sex.
That was in our Sunday school small class.
Yeah, right. It was.
Just kidding.
What can we pray for you this week? Sex.
Babysitter. Anybody? Nope. So you have to be intentional about it. You have to be the one that reaches out. You have to be the one that makes an effort to find a sitter if that's something, or have the time. When the kids are in school, if they go, if you don't homeschool and they go off to school, that may be a time, even though that's work hours, quote unquote, that may be a time where you guys, again, if you're a couplepreneur, you own the business, you're the boss of you, right? So take those moments. There's always invoices to pay. There's always employees to hire or interview, or to give the performance review or whatever it might be. There's always something to do. So when the kids are at school, take advantage of that, and have some intimate time. Do the bubble bath. Do whatever it is. Take advantage of those times. And I know we've talked about this before, that we were in a babysitting co-op when our kids were younger, and so there were 4 families total that were in this babysitting co-op, and each family got to go on a date 3 nights of the month. So this was always on a Friday night, and then it was your turn to watch all the kids one time a month, right? So all the kids would come to your house, you'd order pizza and cookies and watch a movie and all the kind of stuff. And we've said before, that night it was total chaos. It was just chaos because all the kids, I forget how many
Hell
kids.
on earth.
No, I don't remember that. The kids had a blast. I don't know, there was probably 8 or 9 kids. I don't remember how many there were. But the other 3 couples got to go out on date night. And we had very strict rules too, that you couldn't drop your kids off early and you had to be on time. You absolutely had to be on time. But it was as soon as they dropped the kids off, at 6 o'clock or whatever it was, boy, there wasn't a lot of standing around talking time, right? And because you're friends with these people, there wasn't time where you just kind of sat and chit-chatted and whatever. No, you barely rolled the vehicle down to a slow stop.
And the kids rolled.
Yeah, tossed the kids out, and we're off on date night. But that was a blessing to us, because when we lived, we didn't have family around us. We had no family. We moved to a different city, and there was no one around, grandma, aunts, uncles, all the things, nobody there. So we had to get creative, and that's where we came up with the babysitting co-op, and we did that for years. Kids loved it. They grew up together. They had so much fun together. We lived in Indiana. When it was warm, they'd play out in a slip and slide or whatever. And the time that you got to go on a date night, it was awesome. And it was 4 hours, enough, I think 4 or maybe 4.5 hours, enough to go to a movie and dinner, or whatever, and enough time for drive time. So
Right.
you don't want to make it towards just 2 hours, because it's tough to do anything. But having a babysitting co-op, start reaching out to either people in your neighborhood, people to go to church with, and yeah, that was a game changer for us. So getting creative about creating the times for intimacy. There were times that we didn't go to a dinner or a movie, or we went right back home. Right back home, and we had a nice intimate evening. Sometimes we'd make dinner. But yeah, those were the times where we could, even experiment a little bit more too, so knowing that the kids aren't going to walk in or whatever it might be.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right. Make a little bit more noise. Bring out the power tools.
We did not bring out power tools. I will tell you that when the last child left was our youngest daughter. She was off to college, and our middle son had already graduated college, and he lived close by. And we were empty nesters. Right? We used to be an empty nesters. Well, we were having we were having an intimate evening, and all of a sudden, and with the door, and we were actually in our room, all of a sudden we heard the door open, Mom, and it wasn't Mom, it was Mom with a deep voice, and we're like, oh crap. Well, he walked right in, there it was, and he turned around and walked right back out. That was the last time that he ever showed up unannounced. From then on, he always texted.
That any of the kids.
Can I come over?
I think he, yeah.
I think he spread the word.
Right.
Do not go to
you don't
Mom
want to see Mom and Dad.
Because you can't unsee it.
Right. Oh.
I don't know what made me think of that. That one always kind of cracks me up. Our poor son.
Yes.
It's scarred him for life. Anyway, so yeah. Guys, sex is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be a part of your married life. Yeah. That's how God created it to be. But you've got to put some work and effort into creating that intimacy together. It just doesn't happen overnight. It just doesn't happen by happenstance. It has to be both of you committed. It has to be both of you wanting that intimacy. And communication is the key. Sitting and really talking about what do you like, what don't you like, what are some things you want to try, what some things you never want to try, whatever it might be. Start talking about those things. You'll be surprised at how much closer you get.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's just making it a priority.
Yes.
Okay?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that you make it a priority. It doesn't make you weird. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not strange. You know, it's not whatever.
Right.
Okay. It's how it should be. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And it can be that way through your entire life.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Until the Lord calls you home.
That's right.
You know. In fact, we've known. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds. When we know an elderly couple that literally till they die. In fact, they both had full lives and their spouses passed away.
Yeah, when they were 80s, right?
Right, in their 80s, mm-hmm. and so they got married at 90.
Yes.
And they got married. The only reason they got married is we want to have sex.
Want to have sex.
And we want to make it. I mean, they come from. So we want to.
Well,
right.
we want to have a relationship and with someone because both of them had been married to their first spouse for 56 years, whatever it was, and they missed that, and so they got married, and their sex life was active at that age, which is incredible, right? And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to have that where you're old and maybe you can't hear each other very well and you can't see each other?
Well, and that kept them alive too. I mean,
absolutely.
It's just, and they did the things they ate. It gave them a reason to eat better and to
take care of themselves.
Take care of themselves physically and do and work out to what they could do so it keeps their bodies moving. So they did it for sex, and. Because it was a priority, because it's the spice of life.
Right.
And you're married. Have sex. Okay?
On that note. Okay, so we're going to head over to the after party, which is for Club Couplepreneur members, and we are going to be sharing one tool that we really recommend. Not tool in that way. One resource. That would have been weird. Yeah. One resource that we really believe in and we want to share it with you. So we'll talk about that in the after party.
Okay, and the rest of you, hey, it was great having you here, but before we let you go, we want to remind you that you were purposefully and wonderfully created, and you were created to do great things and achieve great things together.
Bye-bye, everybody.